Well, welcome to this complete beginner whittling lesson. This is part one of the Whittling Little People series. And I have this in mind as a complete beginner whittling lesson because I feel like it is an ideal first project if you have not attempted whittling before. Now, if you have whittled before, that's fine. You'll still find things to learn. And I want to point out that I'm calling this a lesson and not a tutorial. The reason is that I'm not just going to show you step by step the steps to take to do this. I'm going to talk about why I'm taking each step. I'm going to stop and pause and explain certain concepts and things as if you are doing this for the very first time. And my goal is that by the end of the series that you'll have an awesome little person and that you'll be able to have something that you're happy to have, and that in the process of doing the project, you'll pick up the knowledge and skills that you need to apply to other whittling projects. So I'm going to slide that out of the way. And our goals for this lesson are that you will be able to execute push cuts, you will be able to shape a square block into a cylinder, and you will be able to deal with breaking wood. All excellent skills for a complete beginner wood carver. And so essentially what we're doing in this video is we're going to take this 1 by 1 by 2.5 inch piece of wood and we're going to change it into a cylinder. That's what we're doing today. So let's get started. Now, it is difficult to draw a circle, but it is easy to make a circle out of a square. And the way that I'm going to do that is that I'm going to start by drawing lines a third of the way across each face of this piece of wood. Now, I'm just going to estimate. If you want to measure, you can. Good luck finding a ruler that measures in thirds of inches, but I'm going to estimate about a third, and I'm going to do that. And here's your first tip if you're a brand new carver. You hold that position in your knuckle against the wood, you get your pencil where you want it, and you don't change that position. You lock your hand in place, and then I can just move the wood around and have that same line. So there's your first tip. I'm sliding over there. I need to make that a little bit further over. And, you know, measuring is good. I do measure. But the nice thing about whittling, in my opinion, is that it's an art where it's not perfectly shaped when you're done. You're going to have facets. You're going to have slight variations in the shapes. And I think that's part of what the charm of whittling is. And so you get a finished product, and it's not going to be a perfect sphere, but you're going to get that. You're going to get that idea, and you're going to get that rough cut shape. Now, certainly, if you decide to work in a style where you want to sand things smoothly and really work that down to make it smoother, that's fine. But all that to say, if you make little tiny mistakes in the spacing or everything, especially as you're marking off stuff like this, it's not something that you need to be horribly worried about. Now, to make things dead simple here, I'm just going to color in that corner. And if I were to look at this from the top and connect those, we'll go ahead and do that here. You would see that the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my square piece of wood and I'm going to turn it into an octagon by cutting the corners off. And again, drawing a circle is difficult, but making a circle from a square is actually pretty easy. I'm just going to cut the corners off and keep doing that until I have something round. So we're going to start on this side that I've already marked for cutting. I am going to use my 1.5 inch knife from Deep Holler Knives in this video today, and I talked about that in my choosing a first knife video. I think it's a good choice for this type of a project. And we're going to start carving this by using a push cut. Now, the push cut is the most basic cut that you're going to use in whittling, and it is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to take the knife and you're going to push it through the wood. Okay. And a couple things to note while I'm doing that. First of all, you note that my thumb on my left hand is automatically going there. The other thing to note is that that is my ratty glove, and I'm going to get a better glove. There we go. That's a little better. So, as I was saying, when I'm doing this, my thumb, my left thumb is actually what's doing the pushing. I'm not pushing with my right hand here, and I am definitely not just wildly flinging things. I'm not peeling a potato. I'm carving a piece of wood. Now, certainly you can sit in the woods and you can get your pocket knife out and you can whittle away at the end of something like that. But this is not controlled. This is not going to give me the results that I want. What I'm going to learn to do is a controlled push cut, which just slides across the edge of the wood. Look at that. Just sliding across the edge. I'm pushing with the thumb on my left hand, and I'm actually providing some counter pressure with my right hand. That keeps me completely under control while I'm doing that. Okay. And I know I make it look easy. I've been doing this for a long time. I've got all that muscle memory built up. If you're doing this for the first time, what you want to think about is not flinging yourself away, but getting comfortable with slow, gradual cuts, just a little bit at a time, clearing off. And see how I'm just kind of shaving along the edge there. And what I've done is I've just gotten rid of that whole corner, right? Now all I have to do is do that 3 more times, right? So something else you'll notice as I'm doing this is my index finger on my left hand. I'm holding the top of this piece of wood. It's on the back side, right? I'm wearing a glove that should protect me, but holding it on the back side so that when my knife comes off, I've got no danger of hitting that, right? So that's good practice when I'm making that push cut, okay? And you can almost see in some ways, you almost can get to the point where you're pulling the carving down, but really I'm just pushing up with my left thumb and pulling back. Now, some people will say a cut like this is a different type of cut. I think these are all push cuts, no matter how deep or how much you angle. At the heart, it's a push cut. And so we're only going to use push cuts right now to go all the way across each side. So now I've got 2 sides done. I've got to do 2 more. Once you grow in confidence and you get comfortable, you may be able to take larger cuts out like that. You get to know your knife. You get to know how you're doing it. You get that control. You can take bigger cuts. There's nothing wrong with starting with small cuts like this. As you get more comfortable, you'll be able to take bigger cuts and just take them right off. And you can see I can just make short work of that with a sharp knife. And I'll finish up the last side here. All right. So I've knocked off the hard corners on all 4 corners, and if I look at that from the top, sure enough, I've changed my square to an octagon. Now, the next step to change that to a circle from the top, or a cylinder on the side, is that I've got all these hard corners now around the outside that I want to remove. And we are going to use, you guessed it, push cuts to do that. So really simple. I'm just going to come back to the hard corner, and I'm going to take it off. Now, this is perfect. I was hoping this would happen. Something is happening here, and I think this is important for you to learn in your first attempt at whittling. Notice how that piece of wood is splitting further up than where my knife is. That means that it is breaking instead of being cut, right? And you can see that split further up from where my blade is. I can feel it in my knife. I can feel my knife being pulled down into the wood instead of sliding along it and coming back up out of it, okay? Now, the first time you do this, you may feel it, you may not realize it, and you're going to finish that and watch this. See that keeps splintering, and now it just broke off. And you're going to think, oh man, I just ruined my piece of wood. I just broke that. Well, one of our learning goals for today was how to deal with a breaking piece of wood. So I'm glad that happened, because that's going to happen to you if you carve a cylinder, and I think that's one of the first things that you want to have happen to you, because you want to know how to deal with that. Okay, nothing to fret about. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around and I'm just going to carve the other direction. It's like magic. I'm going to carve over that in the other direction, and lo and behold, when I carve in the other direction, it's smooth, right? Now, that might have messed up my shape there a little bit. That part of my cylinder is just going to be a little bit more indented than the others, so I'm going to work my way around that. I'm going to carve in the other direction here, and until I get that a little bit lower, and I can really get off that broken piece. Now, what I'll tell you is that as an experienced carver, I probably wouldn't have let that knife go all the way through and really break that all the way off. What I would have done is I would have noticed, and we'll see if it extends out to here or not, that as soon as it starts breaking, I'm going to stop. I'm not even going to finish that cut, which is another reason to do shorter controlled cuts and not wild cuts. I'm going to start feeling it, that breakage. I can see that starting to break in front of there. Instead of finishing that cut, I'm going to turn around. I'm just going to carve from the other direction. You see how that comes off? It's nice and smooth. Okay. So what happens is the wood grain is not necessarily consistent. It looks like it's completely vertical, but it's probably not, right? And so on one side of the wood, when I'm carving this way, I'm carving with the grain. But on the other side of the wood, that carving in this direction might be carving against the grain. You can see I'm getting some breakages there. So I'm just going to turn around the other way. I'm going to go really light, and I'm just going to smooth those out. This will happen to you in your first attempts at whittling. Don't be discouraged by it. Just learn how to deal with it, change the direction, and keep going. Okay. Now it seems like I've gotten out of that problem area, and that problem area is usually just one side of the wood. Usually on other sides, you might find that it's not doing that. You can see here I'm switching my directions, and I'm doing okay carving both this direction and then switching the other direction. I do that really naturally, just flipping my sides around. And what I'm doing here is I'm just finding each one of these hard corners that was created when I made the octagon, and I'm knocking it off, making it flat. I knock that completely off, okay? And then I've still got a flat area here between this new one I made and this one over here. So I'm going to knock that hard corner off. I can still see my pencil mark there. I'm going to do that. And now I've got this little bit here. You can see the machine marks there, that outside part of the wood where it was sawn. I'm just going to really lightly come across that. Oh, it's starting to break there a little bit, so I'm going to come back the other way. I'm going to do that. Right, I'm going to do that until I've completely shaved off every original piece of surface on the wood. Okay. I'm just going to keep doing that until I've gone back and forth and I've shaved off every piece. So I don't have any flat surfaces that were the original exterior of the piece of wood. And so that's pretty good. I can look at it at the end. Is it a perfect circle? No, but it's, it's pretty close. And I would say it's whittling close. It's close enough. And that's something that you can be happy with. So you can fiddle with that for as long as you want. You can look at it and say, I feel like I need to shave off this part here just a little bit more. But I also wouldn't overthink it. Okay. So that's it. That's it for part one. We learned how to do a push cut. We execute push cuts all around here. We learned how to shape a square block into a cylinder. And we learned how to deal with breaking wood, all in one quick video. And if you're bored, you don't feel like moving on, you're done. You whittled your first log. You made a column, a tree trunk. I guess that's the same thing as log. It's the cardboard on the inside of your roll of toilet paper. You already made your first whittling. Just say what you want it to be, a tall can of beer or soda, pop. Anyway, enjoy and happy carving. I'll see you in part two.